Hi, and welcome to the CDFM study group. This is Helen Thomas. So, what I want to go over is the commercial activity cost competition process. That's a mouthful. But what it is to kind of look at the competitive process that must take place according to Office of Management and Budget, OMB Circular A76. This is where you're comparing whether it's more cost effective for the government to do the job, or is it more cost effective to get a contractor to do the job. So the process is very simple, and here it is. So before any OMB Circular A76, so before any A76 study is conducted, and this is when you're trying to consider, again, utilizing resources to move from government or to pay a contractor. So you have to notify Congress. So as you see stated here, the first and the last, next to last step begins with notifying Congress, because again, it's going to require funding in a different avenue. So Congress needs to be identified. It needs to know, to be notified rather. And so you request a study contract. So Congress is the one that approves that request for the study contract. So it's a contract to do the study, not the actual contract. Once it's awarded, then that study contract will then allow that organization to go ahead and begin a study. You have to do a cost comparison to determine what it costs the government to do the job, and then what it will cost based on bids, what it'll cost for a contractor to do the job. And so when you start the studies. This MEO stands for Most Efficient Organization. This is the government structure, the government organization. What it will take the government to do the job is called the most efficient organization. So the MEO structure, whatever that perfect structure is to accomplish that mission, is then developed. While you're developing the MEO, what you're also doing is you're completing the performance work statement. The performance work statement is the document that's going to be used to send out for bids for contractors. So as you're developing the MEO, you're also completing the performance work statement. The next step is to complete an independent review. Once we have our structure, then a cost needs to be associated with each individual task to determine what that government independent estimate is. So complete independent review. And on the second level, after you complete the performance work statement, then you need to solicit bids from contractors. You send them the PWS, and you're trying to find out, based on what all the things that organization needs to accomplish, how much will it cost. And that contract will then come back with their bids. And so a cost comparison is done. You see my note here. When it comes to the government doing it in the MEO structure or a contractor, commercial bids, that is your contractor, must be at least 10% below the in-house to be selected or even considered. So if it's more expensive, and again, this is in a perfect world, because depending on the mission at the time, this may not even be considered. Because if the Department of Defense or the Army, Navy, they need their personnel, the government structure to be moved to deploy, then this does not come into play. So this is if they're not deployed and the government structure is required, is cheaper than the contractor must be 10% cheaper than the government to even be considered. Administrative appeals. So if you say, hey, we're going to go with a contractor, then this is an appeal process. Or you say, no, we're going to go with the government structure. This is opportunity for appeal. Once a decision is made, the final appeal decision, it goes back to Congress. Congress then have to determine funding levels, because again, we get money from Congress. So Congress determines funding and the results, and they review the results of the A76 study to determine the level of funding. And once Congress approves the funding, contract is awarded, or we implement the in-house government structure, which is the most efficient organization. So that was quick and simple. It's the A76 cost competition process, and this is the process used to determine whether we keep the functions in-house, which is the most efficient organization, or we get a contractor to complete that task. So thank you, and I'll see you again next time.